This is Maximus Aviation.
Okay, so potato. So NASA is officially calling it a postponement and not exactly a cancellation. However, as United States Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart wrote in a 1964 case of Jacob Bellis versus Ohio, to describe his threshold test for obscenity, explaining how obscenity can be best described famously by saying, "It's no mystery, you just know it when you see it." So while NASA is calling its recent decision regarding Boeing's fatally flawed Starliner a postponement, a better term might be a prelude to a cancellation. Either way, NASA is apparently saying sayonara to the possessed Boeing spacecraft. Okay, so what the heck am I talking about? Well, on 15 October, NASA officially announced the upcoming ISS launch schedule for 2025, and Boeing's little Starliner that couldn't was conspicuously absent. So let's take a look at the NASA official statement together, shall we? NASA and its industry partners Boeing and SpaceX continue planning next year's missions to the International Space Station for the agency's Commercial Crew Program. While significant work remains to prepare these flights, NASA expects a busy year of in-orbit activities and it's planning windows of opportunity for mission teams to target pending operational readiness and station traffic. As for Crew 10, NASA's SpaceX Crew 10 mission is targeting no earlier than February 2025. The mission will carry NASA astronauts Anne McClain, commander, and Nicole Ayers, pilot, along with Japanese mission specialist astronaut Taku Anushi and cosmonaut Kirill Peskov to the space station to conduct scientific investigations and technology demonstrations. The mission will be the second space flight for McClain and Onishi and the first for Ayers and Peskov. Crew 9, which arrived at the space station on September 29, carrying NASA astronaut Nick Hague and cosmonaut Alexander Rubinov, will return to Earth with NASA astronauts Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore accompanying Hague and Rubinov, following a short holdover with Crew 10. As for Crew 11, which was scheduled to be on the Starliner, now in its place, NASA SpaceX Crew 11 will be the second crew rotation flight of 2025 and is targeted for no earlier than July to benefit the space station needs, including accommodating resupply flights and other operations aboard the orbiting laboratory. Okay then, but when will the next Starliner flight take place? Well, NASA said that the timing and configuration of Starliner's next flight will be determined once a better understanding of Boeing's path to system certification has been established. This determination will include considerations for incorporating crew flight test lessons learned, approvals of final certification products, and operational readiness. Meanwhile, NASA is keeping options on the table for how to best achieve system certification, including windows of opportunity for a potential Starliner flight in 2025. And NASA ended their press release saying NASA will provide more information when available. Like I said, you know it when you see it. And it looks like if it's not dead, the Starliner program is on life support. However, if you're new to our planet, earlier this year NASA had hoped that Boeing's Starliner would be certified in time to fly the early 2025 mission. But famously, problems with the crew flight test mission, which launched in June with NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams on board, led to NASA to conclude in July that the spacecraft would not be certified in time. So it delayed that Starliner 1 mission from February to August 2025, moving up Crew 10 to February. NASA also then announced that it would prepare Crew 11 in parallel with Starliner for launch in that August of 2025 slot. But I think Noor Al-Saibi from the site Futurism summed it up pretty well, saying that after the Boeing craft crapped out in a number of ways, NASA has been playing a space-age game of musical chairs, trying to find a way to bring the Starliner astronauts home. NASA has had to make some tough calls, including leaving behind 2 disgruntled women astronauts who were supposed to hitch a ride on the same Crew 9 mission that's going to bring Wilmore and Williams back home. As far as worst-case scenarios go, Boeing's cursed Starliner could obviously have done worse, sort of going the Challenger route. However, this is a pretty screwed up debacle that has caused some massive headaches and embarrassment on all sides. Worse yet, as Space News reports, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson admitted this week that the agency may have to continue relying on the Russian Soyuz spacecraft in the years to come. An awkward confession given the sheer amount of resources it has poured into its commercial crew program. And as we've covered extensively on the channel, it was in 2014 that NASA awarded Boeing and SpaceX contracts with their commercial crew program to develop spacecraft capable of carrying crew and cargo to the ISS. But at the time, Boeing was, as I said in a recent video, the made man in the room, and also at the time a well-known force in the industry, while SpaceX was the new kid on the block, and NASA overwhelmingly tried along with Boeing to keep SpaceX out of the program altogether. However, smarter minds prevailed, and also along with Boeing, they did select SpaceX. I'll post a link to that video. But not only has SpaceX exceeded expectations, launching 9 crews to the space station while Boeing is still struggling to get certified for its very first mission, SpaceX single-handedly and literally saved NASA's entire manned space program, much to Boeing's shame and embarrassment. Meanwhile, Boeing has yet to hold up its end of their $4.3 billion commercial crew program contract with NASA. Boeing's Starliner was first conceived in 2010, built on the legacy and design of the Apollo program. However, as the world found out, Starliner's debut manned first journey and, more importantly, its certification flight to the ISS was an utter and embarrassing failure. But some of you may recall Starliner's first uncrewed test flight in 2019 managed to reach space, but all too common software glitches caused the Starliner to burn excessive fuel, thus preventing it from making it to the ISS. So that botched first flight led to NASA giving Boeing's Frankenliner a second bite at the apple with a second test flight of another empty Starliner before a crew was to ride on board. In May of 2022, Boeing completed the Orbital Test Flight 2, the second uncrewed test flight of Starliner, setting the stage for the now famously failed crewed test flight of Butch and Sundance. And the rest of that story is now history. And so Boeing's Starliner may be history now as well. NASA's retirement of the space shuttle program prompted a need for a new spacecraft to shuttle astronauts to and from the ISS. NASA's goal was to wean itself off dependence on Russia's Soyuz for crew transport and invested heavily in developing partnerships with private aerospace companies. And quoting Gizmodo, despite Starliner's less than ideal uncrewed flights, NASA still went ahead with the most recent crewed test flight, hoping that the spacecraft could finally be ready to transport its crew to the ISS on a regular basis and have the space agency be able to have 2 commercial partners servicing the space station at one time. And yet NASA's made guy got whacked in the process. And SpaceX, the once black sheep, is now boss of all bosses. And judging from NASA's recent announcement, it looks like it's going to stay that way. And with that, I will leave the rest up to you. What do you think? Is NASA planning on axing Boeing's Frankenliner, or will they give the often defective capsule yet another chance? Well, I won't know until you let me know down below. And if you haven't yet, I'd love it if you consider subscribing and, of course, give us a like. And oh yeah, until next time, this is Maximus.